It's really difficult to get in there with a boxer, not just any boxer, but a heavyweight champion of the world and one of the greatest ever to do it. And it's hard enough to do that. It's obviously easier if you're Francis and you're an absolute brawler and you could take the fight to him. And fair enough to him. He was fair play. He was patient and he picked his times to have the brawls, but he lost his energy. He lost his energy in round 6 and had a massive dip round 6, round 7, and came back a little bit in the back end of round 8. But Tyson, even despite getting knocked down in the early rounds, which doesn't go against you that much in boxing, you've got to realise it's boxing. It's not MMA. It's not about kind of like how you capitalise on that knockdown and get on top of the guy and then win the rest of the round and then win it at 10-8. It's not about that. It's kind of like how Tyson reacted after it and held himself together for the last 20 seconds. And that round certainly was in favour of Francis, but it wasn't. Of course, the MMA community reacts this morning, and of course, it's all in favour of Francis. A lot of times it is, especially when it's a really popular fighter like Francis. But the reason I'm commenting on this is because it's to do with energy systems. It's not to do with who's the best fighter. It's to do with who's the best boxer, but it's also to do with who can hold it together for the 10 rounds and usually 12 rounds that it would be. But as this type of fight becomes more popular because MMA has exploded with the UFC, then you're gonna see these crossovers, and you're gonna see MMA fighters come in, especially good guys with stand-up game. You're gonna see them coming across to boxing, and these big prize money in place. Of course, for the judges, there's massive incentives for Tyson to win and go on to fight Usyk. That would potentially be out of the window if Francis won last night. So of course, people are going to think that it's fixed, and the bookies are going to lose massively if Francis was to win because most people are betting on Tyson. But if you take it back to the Conor McGregor Nate Diaz fight, when Nate took the fight on, I think something like 10 days. All of a sudden, Conor, being super confident and in the shape of his life and on the run of his life, he stupidly said, not stupidly because it's not fair, because you've got all this confidence and you kind of want to make the fight happen, you want to please the fans, but he said, okay, I'll take it at 15 pounds heavier. I think it was 15 pounds heavier, and that's 7.5 kilos, almost 7 kilos. To go up in a really short time, in a week, 2 weeks time, to go up in 7 kilos, it's actually really easy to do. Just lift a few more weights, eat like a monster, and it's really easy to put on weight. It's really easy to put on muscle. It's really easy to put on weight, yeah? And make that weight and therefore be able to fight Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz kind of come in comfortably, I think it was 175 or 170, to come in and fight at his comfortable level, just being fit all year round because he's doing his triathlons, doing endurance training, and that's the key with Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz would come at you for 5 rounds and still be swinging as hard in the last 10 seconds as he was in the first minute. So Conor kind of going up to that and putting on that weight, that's one thing. To make your heart conditioned so that it can get blood to all that extra kind of muscle and fat and all that extra body mass, not possible. It's just not possible. And if you kind of you've been off with an injury, if you're a runner and you've seen that the weight pile on and then you've tried to run afterwards, it's so much more difficult afterwards. So it's to do with energy systems, and you've got to, if you're going to go up 15 pounds, 20 pounds to the next weight class, it takes you an entire camp. Ideally, it takes you more than that. And so this is why it's so impressive, these guys that are double champion of more than one weight class. And it's usually the lighter guys, because once you get to heavyweight, it's difficult for those guys to kind of come down. It's difficult to do the cut, and it's not great on, if you think about how it's not great on your body, it's not great on your psychology, but it's also not great on your organs and everything else that's got to deal with it, coming down and going up. Like Ricky Hatton, in between fights, just putting on 20 kilos, ridiculous. Of course you're going to have a short career if that's the case. And Ricky's back in shape now, but there's a reason why Pacquiao still looks in great shape. Pacquiao had a long career. Mayweather still looks in great shape, still looks exactly the same, probably the same weight or just a little bit more than what he was fighting at. Didn't take a lot for him to get to a comfortable weight, and that's the beauty of that's the ease of a really good fighter. They know when to fight and they know what weight to fight at. So last night, it's pretty simple to see that although you would have expected Tyson to dominate Francis more, and that's probably the problem that most people have this morning on waking up to the result and seeing the highlights and seeing the kind of the commentary. The commentary speaks for itself in the early rounds, and you know, up to round 6, and then when Francis tires. But yeah, of course, the boxing world expects, and they expect Tyson to smother him. And it to be a complete whitewash, but you're always going to get, when you're a physical guy like Francis, you're always going to have an opportunity. So, yeah, energy systems. Like I'd love to see Tyson get in shape, like actually physically get in shape. And I know he's a big man anyway, and he carries a lot of fat, etc. I'd love to see. Imagine how fast he would be if he lost a lot of that fat. Like it would just be an absolute fighting phenomenon. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see him go through a proper training camp, get some people together, really get in shape, and then fight at round about the weight that he's at, but have a lot more muscle, a lot more speed on him. That would be immense.